how do you feel about, or what do you think, not feel, about working with a couple? Because I think it's important for people to understand and know this, because I have not rejected, but held off on taking couples because of my past experiences with people that are fully active in their addiction.
Well,
alcohol especially, I find.
Right.
Alcohol and other, yeah.
So, actually, I neglected to mention early on one of my...
You're a case act.
Well, yes, I do that, but I'm also trained in auricular acupuncture, and so I've used that pretty successfully for addiction. So there are times I've had couples that their drinking is an issue, in which I will put needles in the person's ears, so they're actively working on cutting down on their addiction as we work on what's happening in the relationship dynamic. So I've done that, and it's worked pretty well so far.
Do you also ask that they get, because recovery looks different to everybody,
Right.
and I've gone through the gamut of being such a black and white thinker because I guess of what I taught in school, what I did 35 years ago in the field of substance abuse, because that was what I started out in, was substance abuse and addiction. And it's really changed a lot because AA and Naranon are not for everybody, and I have to respect that. I don't want to. I should say NA. Naranon is like Al-Anon for the family members. So what do you believe would be helpful for a couple doing that?
Well, in the case of an individual struggling with addiction, often I would recommend seeing someone separately for the addictive piece. I mean, it could be me too, but we do have to discuss it as a team, because the one spouse might feel like there's a ganging up or something taking place, which, of course, I want to mitigate as quickly as I can.
Of course.
And then I would use different techniques with them, like motivational interviewing is a very big one too,
Yes.
that I was trained in.
I love that.
I've used that, and I also use a combination of, this is something I've kind of put together on my own, which is DBT, or dialectical behavioral therapy, in conjunction with, because of the Buddhist piece.
Yes.
And I teach
which you're very connected to.
Right. So that, and with mindfulness meditation. And so that can start to give someone a sense of regaining of control with their addiction, while I work with them with, the ear acupuncture needles too. And there's a lot of empirical data that we have now since the 1970s coming out of the Lincoln Center in the Bronx that showed that the ear acupuncture protocol works really, really well with all across the addiction paradigm. So even cigarettes, alcohol, even like psychological addiction to marijuana, it helps people.
But do you agree, though? Because I love all that, and
Sure.
I think that is so pertinent to what we do. But the person has to be, the caveat is the person has to be willing to want to stop.
Oh, sure, they have to be invested.
Yeah, so I think that's an important thing to also to take into consideration. Is all of this stuff is fantastic, but the person has to be willing to stop.
Right.
And it's unfortunate, but I just turned down a young woman called freaking out. Her husband doesn't want to stop. And from my perspective in my space here, it took years for me to recognize, because I wanted to help so badly since it was the area of expertise.
Sure.
Also, not obviously acupuncture, I don't do that, that's where you're certified. But what I found was the people that didn't want to be in recovery, it was a poop fest in here.
Right.
That's not a clinical term, by the way, but it's better than saying the other. But it was a ball of reactivity, and the person who was abusing or addicted quite often would storm out of the room, and it took on a whole nother shape. So I think that just for people that do get a chance to view this, that it's important that if they want to get help, their partner has to be in some type of, have the desire to really, really want to stop, and then we are more than willing to do the work.
Absolutely.
On the other end.
Oh, sure. I've had a situation as well where I'm working with a couple and one individual has the active addiction and the other wants marital counseling, but the other is unwilling to even come in. And so, what I've had to do, unfortunately, is take on as an individual, the one, partner, and help them walk through what it is that they want to do for themselves.
Yeah.
Do they want to stick it out? Do they want to try to give them another chance?
Yeah.
Or do they need to consider alternatives?
Yeah.
Like ending the relationship, which is always the last option. I never want to see that as an Imago therapist. Again, falling back on happily ever after. I think that we both would like to see with other people.
There's no question.
Right. So, but sometimes, that doesn't always work.
No,
and in
it doesn't.
End, you have to prepare someone to make the next move, and that could be terrifying, especially the longer that they're together.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. I think that's important to take into consideration as well.
Right.